Friends, hello. Should I welcome you to episode 425? Should I say, this is the beginning of season 7? Or should I wish you a happy 2021? Who cares? This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Omnipod, Dexcom, and Touched by Type 1. Find out more about the sponsors at juiceboxpodcast.com or right there in the show notes of your podcast player. And of course, you can always type myomnipod.com/juicebox, dexcom.com/juicebox, or touchedbytype1.org into any browser that you have at your fingertips. I've taken a couple of weeks off to celebrate the holiday with my family, and I'm back at it. You might not have noticed because, I made sure that the podcast kept coming. But I am refreshed. I'm enthusiastic. I am happy to be out of 2020. And I have for you today an absolutely astounding story from a Type 1 named Jill. You're going to love it. It's got intrigue and twists and turns. There's babies and odd diagnoses. There's even wine.
I never wear headphones, so I feel like I'm yelling right now. Like, am I talking loud? Am I talking quiet?
You're perfect. Just do what you're doing. Awesome. Do you feel like you can hear your own voice? Or no?
Kind of. I'm wearing like noise canceling headphones. That's all we had. So it just feels like I don't know what my volume is, but if you say it's fine, then I'll just keep on going.
You are terrific. You sound great. Don't think about anything. We're going to start right away. I'm super excited to talk to you. Tell people your name. Please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. We're going to do a little thing here in 2021, kind of a book club. I'm going to tell you about it at the end of the episode. But basically, if you go, I don't want to give it all away here, but we're going to go over the pro tip episodes and then have live chats about them if you'd like to be involved. There, that was a simple way of saying it. Let's listen to this, then I'll tell you about that.
My name is Jill Woodruff.
Good, perfect. And Jill has such a great story. Like, it's fascinating. This has got to be early, mid 2019, you and I meet? Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, tell people what happened to you.
So I was sick for a little while, but I didn't really know I was sick. And then in January, I went to urgent care for a yeast infection. And I was like, why do I have a yeast infection? I haven't had that since I was, very young. And I don't know why I would have that, So I went to urgent care and they did a pee test. And in the pee test, of course, the urgent care doctor came back and was like, you have a lot of sugar in your pee. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means.
You should have said, of course I do. I'm baking bread in my vagina.
Right. I was like, okay, well, great. Like, I'm super uncomfortable. Can we just get this over with?
Yeah. Not a fun conversation, Jill.
Yeah. He just wanted to run some tests. I'm like, okay. So he goes and then he comes back and just was like, dropped it. Was just like, yeah, you're diabetic. And that was just like totally out of left field because I just went in for something that I thought was just like another like a woman thing, just simple. Right. Give me the antibiotics so we can be done with this, and ended up being like a whole thing.
Yeah, no kidding. So then do you go right to your primary care doctor, or what do you do then?
So I'm really irresponsible. I'm going to say it's because I'm a millennial, but maybe that's not it. So at the time I had just turned 30, like 2 weeks prior. And I feel like I just didn't have like a primary care doctor. I always had Kaiser Permanente, whatever they were before. I can't remember the name, but I always had that kind of doctor where you would just kind of go in if you had something, you would see whoever was available. So I didn't have anyone that I had established care with.
Okay.
So I just had an urgent care doctor. I didn't ever really have a real doctor, air quotes, right?
Yeah. Just whoever came out from behind the curtain when you were there.
Yeah. And I didn't really have any health issues before. So I just went in when I had the flu or, for little things, but I didn't have a regular doctor. So this stranger kind of dropped the ball on me. And I was like, oh, this is why grown-up like having like a primary care physician that they know in case something happens.
The tiniest bit of like, I know this person while they're telling you things. Well, last week I pinched like a nerve in my shoulder and I didn't go to my doctor. I went to a urgent care too, because all I really wanted was like a muscle relaxer because I was like, my shoulder was spasming and I was like, I just need this to stop. If I would have called my doctor, he would have been like, yeah, we can see you in like maybe 10 days. And, it's like,
right. It's a whole thing.
Right. It's like, I can drive up the street where there's a man with a prescription pad and the whole thing's legal. So,
yep.
Now, okay, well, what was your understanding of diabetes leaving urgent care?
Oh, no understanding. So, I do want to be clear, like, I'm not blaming my doctors because now I do kind of understand, like not everybody's a specialist in diabetes. When I went in, my understanding was you're a professional, you went to college, you should be giving me obviously all the information about what you've just told me. I left in total shock. I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do. He told me to make an appointment with a primary care physician to follow up. And I'm like, okay, I don't have one of those. So I guess I'll just pick someone on this list at this facility. He wrote me a prescription for metformin. They had diagnosed me as type 2 because of my age, and wrote me a prescription for the Lancet and like the finger prick or whatever. And that's kind of it. I didn't have any information about what to do with any of it. I remember I went to Target to fill my prescription in a total daze because I was like, what is happening? Like, what am I even going to do with this? And I remember the pharmacist was asking me like, which, and I'm sorry, what's the finger pricker called?
Like the Lance?
The Lance, is that what it is? Sure. I call it a finger pricker.
Listen,
very sophisticated.
As long as you know what it is when you're reaching for it, I think you're fine.
There's different brands. And I remember the pharmacist asked me like, which brand was it that the doctor needed you to get? And I was like, I just looked at her. I was like, I don't know. What does the prescription say? I have no idea. I know way less than you, right? I was just so frustrated. And I just came home and I was like, what do I even do with any of this? I don't know. I don't even know how to prick my finger. Like, am I supposed to? I had no information at all. So that was really frustrating. I ended up YouTubing how to do it.
Wow.
It was just so dramatic because also like, I don't like pain. I've never, I'm not like a tough cookie about anything, if I am hurting, I'm hurting. And so even just a simple thing like pricking my finger, it was just a whole ordeal. I remember hours in the kitchen pacing back and forth, and now it like cracks me up because it's like nothing. But I remember just like holding my breath before I would, stick my little finger and get the blood out. And it was just this whole, I'm a 30-year-old woman. And I remember just feeling so embarrassed that it was so hard.
Oh my God. So far, all I can think of is that everything I've thought to call this episode is too wordy, but Jill can't pick a prick was one of them. Jill's cookie isn't tough, and you didn't even tell us if he gave you medicine for the yeast infection, which I'm still wondering about. And I don't even know why. Just like, what about a vagina? Is that thing okay too? Like, what's going on there? Did he at least give you something for that?
So apparently, yes. Apparently that was like not a big problem, but apparently he said that because of all the sugar, obviously like that can trigger a yeast infection. And I told you, like, I was so confused that I even had it in the first place. Cause I think I've had one maybe once in my youth. And that's it. And I was like, what is happening? Why do I have this? And it was an aggressive yeast infection. It was horrible.
Jill had an aggressive yeast infection.
Please, that'll get everybody to listen. But apparently that's a common thing that happens if you have undiagnosed diabetes. You know, you have a lot of sugar in your blood, and that's what, I don't know, is all connected with the yeast nonsense. So it was just not an ideal situation at all.
So you're a person who, you know, has been healthy thus far. You're probably getting into that like really like space where you're like, I'm 30, nothing's ever going to go wrong with me. I'll never even need a doctor. And then suddenly somebody's telling you, and I don't even want to say half of what you need to know. They're basically just yelling words at you. So there's no direction at all. Here's metformin. Here's a thing to test your blood sugar with. You have diabetes. See you later. Yeah.
And I mean, I also, to give more context, no one in my family has diabetes. I know nobody who has diabetes. Gotcha. So my understanding of diabetes at that point was, this is something that you get when you are overweight. And that's it. And I'm not overweight. You know, I'm 5'2". I was 140 maybe when I went in, which is, you know, fine. It's like average. It just didn't make sense, you know, why I had it, be what I was even supposed to do going forward. And every single doctor that I met after that, because I met many primary care physicians, quote unquote, who were all like, oh, wow, but you're not like overweight. You know, oh, wow, how'd you get like, why are you asking me that? You're my doctor, you know?
Yeah.
It was extremely frustrating.
Do you live in the middle of a desert? Like, or are you like near civilization? Where do you live?
No, yeah. I live 30 minutes from Seattle. I'm in the city. I mean, I guess maybe a little more country than city, but I live by a lot of stuff.
But no expectation that every doctor you bump into should have no idea what diabetes is.
And I just feel like because they thought I was type 2, maybe they have like a very limited understanding of diabetes. Like, oh, it's this epidemic that we see across the country. It's a big deal. I'm sure everybody gets some kind of type 2 training, but it was just very general, you know, any information that I got and everything that I had to learn how to do, from finger pricking to inserting my first Freestyle Libre, everything. I had to YouTube everything.
Yeah.
Nobody showed me how to
That's crazy.
Absolutely do anything at all. And so I still am a teeny tiny bit bitter about that.
Don't worry. We can get it out here.
Excellent.
Well, I really have to say, like, enough people have said it to me over the years that I'm not stunned when the doctor doesn't get it, but I still am a little. Like I try to think about it, like, what if you went to urgent care and urgent care said, hey, you have leukemia. And then you walked into a doctor's office and said, hey, urgent care says I have leukemia. And the doctor said, that's weird. You're not a blonde. You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, is that your assessment pattern? Like, is this what they taught you in school? Like,
yes.
Oh, it's fascinating. It really is. Okay. So you had to go to a number of doctors to find one?
Yeah, because everyone was just kind of confused, and I don't really know. It kind of is a blur. It was like a lot of information. I was told to go to a nutritionist right away. I saw 2 different doctors, like, mainly, and they kind of were, I think, tag teaming with information. Like, I would see one and she was great and she was super sweet. She reassured me we were going to figure this out, but she also was like, I have no idea, like, where to even start with you. I don't know why you're a type 2 diabetic. It doesn't make sense. You're taking the metformin and nothing is happening. You know, I was finger sticking like every, what do they tell you, like 3 times a day or something. And every time I did it, it was like 300. And they were like, yeah, we don't know, but, you know, don't worry, just keep like eating. You need to eat well and like go to your nutritionist. And I was just so frustrated because when I would go on the internet to Google anything, which you should never do when you're sick with anything, you know, everything on the internet says if your blood sugar is higher than 300, you go to the emergency room, like right away. That's a problem. And I didn't understand why every doctor would look at my numbers and would be like, well, yeah, like just go home, like just see if it gets better. Like you just need to eat better. And I am a pretty healthy eater. So I was also frustrated with that because I thought, what else can I cut out of my diet? Okay, sugar, fine. I guess I won't eat bread anymore. Fine. I was cracking up, like remembering this with my husband because I told him, we were eating all these Christmas cookies just recently. And he was like, you remember when you were afraid to eat anything with sugar? Because I literally would have like a panic attack.
Yeah.
If I was brave enough to have like a teeny tiny piece of sugar at this time, the second it went into my body, I got so hot. I got super anxious. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot ever have sugar because I just felt so scared. I didn't understand why every time I would go to the doctor, they'd send me back with no information, just eat better.
Yeah.
It was just nothing made sense. And I think that was like the biggest frustration.
Well, I have a day where that I went through that I think I've brought up on here. So I'll go through it quickly. But one day I had to go to the dentist. And I showed up at the dentist's office and asked to use the bathroom before we started. Then halfway through the procedure, I was like, can we stop for a second? I have to go to the bathroom. And then so I peed like 3 times in like 90 minutes at the dentist's office. So the dentist grabs me on the way out and says, hey, I'm concerned you might have type 2 diabetes. Now I'm like, it ended up being, if you've been listening to the podcast, that my iron was really low and my body was all out of whack and everything. But for a day until I could get a doctor's appointment, I thought I might have type 2 diabetes because somebody said it to me. And I experienced exactly what you're talking about. I couldn't bring myself to eat food because everything felt super scary. Like I can't eat anything. I just didn't eat anything. I just stood there for a day waiting to go to a doctor's appointment.
Yep. And that's it. I mean, it's just like this totally crippling food anxiety of eating it all. I mean, I ate like a bear. That's what, my husband was like, remember when you wouldn't eat any sugar, like you were just eating like a bear. I would eat nuts and berries and that's it. Cause that's all these things on Pinterest. If you look up type 2, diets or whatever, say, oh, why would you have to eat berries? Number one, like they have so much sugar, but I just ate nothing. I just ate little things here and there. My nutritionist was fine, but another frustration was doctors and the nutritionist all made comments about my ethnicity. I'm Latina, and everybody was like trying to figure out an answer, and everybody had to say, oh, well, some ethnicities are more prone to type 2. It's probably in your cultural diet. And I heard that so many times. I was like, so irritated because what is my cultural diet? Number one, you have not asked me what I eat. Nobody asked me what I eat. Nobody asked me specifically like what my nationality, that I identified with was. So
right.
I think what was happening was a lot of people were assuming I was Mexican and I was eating like beans and like what you would get at the Mexican restaurants, and I can only assume that just because of how many people said it in a row. And I was like, what are people thinking? But
where are you? Where's your family from?
My family's from Peru.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know. I mean, I grew up here, so I don't know that my cultural diet, was really an impact. It just
you just imagine the doctors in the other room going, "Hey, Charo in there probably eats a lot of beans, don't you think?"
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I felt. I was just like, I'm not sure where these assumptions are coming from, but because they are professionals, I never said anything. I never brought anything up. I was just like, okay, I believe you when you say that certain ethnicities are probably prone to type 2. That makes sense to me, whatever. But it wasn't until after that I had time to kind of mull stuff over that I was like, well, I don't know why they didn't ask me specifically, like, what's in your diet?
She probably just eats rice and, avocados all day. I don't know. It's what I saw at the Mexican restaurant that one time. No, your story is just the first quarter of it here is fantastic because this is what I'm trying to tell people all the time. You can't just sit there and nod at your doctor and go, okay, and just do whatever they say. Not that you shouldn't listen to them. I'm not saying that. But you have to make sure you have a good one before you start listening.
Right.
And that's just such a big part of diabetes. It's not uncommon for people to be in the situation that you talk about. And you were just at a real disadvantage because, in honesty, if your mom and dad didn't send you on your way already knowing who your doctor was and you just didn't get sick, you were basically a 15-year-old in that office that day being told you had diabetes, right? Because it's the story, it reads just like, what if I would have sent a 15-year-old into a doctor's office to be told they had something that they didn't know about? And on top of that, your blood sugar's over 300 all the time. So you're probably whacked out of your skull. You're probably like, did you notice a clearing of your mind when your blood sugar finally came down?
I think honestly, and I don't know enough about type 1. I haven't listened to enough of the podcasts, especially with Jenny, because I know she has a lot of, I don't know, just like different medical expertise, right? Every time I listen, I'm always like, wow, I need to write all of this down.
Jenny's a rock star.
But I don't know enough about it to know how fast a person can become type 1. I think that my body was probably like shutting down for a couple years before is what I'm thinking, because I had a lot of things slowly kind of going wrong.
Okay.
I peed a lot for a while. Like it wasn't suddenly, it was like 2 or 3 years where I was like, wow, my kidneys just suck. So I feel like, I don't know how long my blood sugar was at 300 for maybe years. And like, I just got used to it. I didn't notice that my mind was foggy. I don't feel, I mean, maybe now I would, but I didn't feel gross at 300. I felt gross when I was at 90,
God. So you were high for a really long time then.
Yeah. And that's what I think, like, I don't even know like when it started, I think it was a really long descent for me, like a couple years. And then suddenly it came on quickly, like at the end with that yeast infection. But I really think it was a long time coming.
Yeah, your entire life shifted in the last 18 months, 2 years in a number of different segments. Like,
yeah,
so you
1000%.
You became an adult about your health right away. You were like, oh, okay, this is happening. And other things happen too, which I can't wait to tell people about. But I like that you're stringing it out like this. I feel like you're a good storyteller. This is excellent. Really, seriously, like when you didn't say the other thing, I was like, Jill's good at this. It's time, isn't it? To take care of yourself, to do the things you know you need. Absolutely it is. Why don't you go right now to myomnipod.com/juicebox and have Omnipod send you out a free, no obligation demo of the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump. It'll take you just a couple of brief moments to fill out what they need to know. And before you know it, right there in your mailbox will be an Omnipod. It's non-functioning, right? So it's not dangerous. It's just so that you can wear it and feel it. See what it would be like. Take a shower, go for a walk. Live your life with an Omnipod to see what life with an Omnipod may be like. It's incredibly easy to do. It's free. Again, there's no obligation. You might as well try. myomnipod.com/juicebox. There's links right there in the show notes of your podcast player or at juiceboxpodcast.com if you can't remember them. But I'll probably say them enough that it'll stick in your head. And eventually you'll be sending me an email that sounds like this. Oh my God, Scott, fine. I tried the Omnipod demo and it was terrific and I use it now. I get a lot of those emails. Yours could be next. So if you're looking to get away from multiple daily injections or you don't want a pump with that tubing on it, try an Omnipod. This is a perfect way to see what you think. myomnipod.com/juicebox. There are 2 ways to have diabetes. One is where you can't see what your blood sugar is doing. And in the other way, you're wearing a Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And you can see everything. Speed, direction, and number in real time. Right on your cell phone. That's like Android or iPhone. Or there's a little receiver. Like say you're one of the 3 people that don't have a cell phone. You just get a little receiver. It's fine. No matter what you need to see your numbers on, Dexcom will have you covered. And covered in a way that you can't imagine. Opening you up to being able to make decisions about insulin and food that takes away the stress and anxiety that using insulin can bring. Whether you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes, the Dexcom G6 is for you, in my opinion. Head over now, dexcom.com/juicebox, and start picking through. See if you would like to learn more. There's a form down there if you would like to. You just tell them a little bit about yourself, what kind of diabetes you have, what kind of insurance, And the next thing you know, you're on your way. And if you have Medicaid or you're a United States veteran using the VA for your insurance, I think you might be very happy with what you find out. And you can start getting those Dexcom alerts when you want them. What do I mean by that? How would you like to know when your blood sugar dips below 85? I don't know. How would you like to know when it dips below 70? Whatever you prefer, that's where you set the alert. Want to know if your blood sugar is rising so you can use more insulin? Do that too. My daughter's high alarm is set at 120. Yours could be somewhere else. Whatever works for you is what's right. Dexcom.com/juicebox. myomnipod.com/juicebox. And don't forget to check out Touched by Type 1 at touchedbytype1.org or on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Thank you so much for listening to the ads. When you support the advertisers, you're supporting the podcast, keeping the podcast free and plentiful. There's a list of all of the advertisers right there in the show notes of your podcast player or at juiceboxpodcast.com. I am genuinely proud of the companies who sponsor this show. We got a good group. When do you finally get a handle on all of this? Like, when do you get at least a base understanding?
So this all happened in January. My month of January was 100% diabetes, of course. I was continuing. I'm a busy lady. I like to travel a lot. I like to do a lot of things with my friends on weekends. And so I wasn't going to stop, even though I was dealing with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Whistler and I had kind of a diabetic episode, and that was kind of hard to deal with. We went to Leavenworth, which is a small German town here that's kind of a tourist attraction. Also had a tiny diabetic episode. I was like, okay, I'm not really getting this, right? This isn't getting better. I can't eat things and enjoy drinking without it being kind of scary. Yikes, maybe I need to find a specialist. There was no way I was getting into an endocrinologist for like 6 months. There was a huge wait for this one. And I didn't really understand that you could shop for endocrinologists. I was given a referral to an endocrinologist in January. Yeah. One endocrinologist. That one was busy for 6 months, apparently. And then that's it. It never dawned on me, not ever having to deal with doctors before, that I could just shop for people. Like I could just get on the internet myself and find someone. And I just waited. I didn't know. And so it wasn't getting better. In February, I flew to Sonoma with my best friend for a wine weekend. And of course, the day before we flew out, she and I both got really sick. We both had the flu. And we were like, well, screw this. Like, we are not wasting. We can't get our money back. So we're just going to take a ton of Dayquil as responsible 30-year-olds would. And we'll be fine. We're not wasting our weekend in Sonoma. I was so sick. We came back a day early just because we were both sick, but I had the flu with diabetes, right? And so I kept checking my blood sugar and I was like, what is happening? It's like 400. Should I go to the urgent care here in California? Like, I had no idea what to do. I came back home. I went to urgent care here every single day for a week. And the 5th day, I'm not kidding, I went every day, and every day they sent me home and they were like, just keep checking your blood sugar. And the 5th day I was like bawling and I was like, I can't keep coming here. I have a full-time job. Like, I can't, what is wrong with me? And so this one doctor obviously took pity on me and was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out for you. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I'm going to call you tomorrow. And so she calls me and says, I have a friend who works at this other clinic who might have a contact for you. So it was like this all, convoluted, like, call this person, call this person, call this person.
Oh my God.
But I ended up getting hooked up with an endocrinologist who could see me a little sooner. So I had a month wait instead. So February goes by, March goes by. I'm still trying to do my best to keep my blood sugar under control. And then in, end of March, I get in to see this endocrinologist. She's amazing. Mm-hmm. She reminds me of my mom. She is like a no-nonsense Indian woman who just is direct, so direct. She took like one look at me and was like, you're not type 2. Why did they tell you were type 2? And I was like, I don't know. And I like started crying.
I just want to go drink wine.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, just fix it. Like, I have no idea. And so she's like, there's no way you're type 2. They should have done a blood test on you. And she did this blood test. And yeah, she's like, yes, look at these numbers, Jill. Like I'm a doctor. Mm-hmm. Look at these numbers. This doesn't make any sense. You're type 1. You've been misdiagnosed. You know, you should have never left that urgent care without this simple blood test that any doctor can do. And I was like, okay, that doesn't help me.
She was like, listen, let's be clear for a second. I drank Dayquil with diabetes and got on a plane so I could drink more wine than a person should. You shouldn't be leaving me in charge of these decisions. Jill, were you a huge party girl through your 20s? Just asking.
I'm not a party girl at all. I just am really into wine, and like we can be very bougie about our wine.
Okay, that's fine. I thought it was fantastic that in the middle of what seemed like a life or death health crisis, you were like, we're still going.
I mean, the wine never stops. It's just, that's just part of life. We're going to figure it out around the wine.
Doctor, while you're considering my diabetes, remember there's going to be Merlot. Okay, like that's part of it right here. No, but I mean, it's just, I guess it really does go to how little you understood about what was happening. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of the fascinating part. So
yeah. Right. So then at least there was the correct diagnosis, right? Then at least she was like, obviously, you're a type 1, your doctors are all idiots. It was basically what she said.
Also, not to pick your psyche apart too much, but it's interesting that once you found a doctor that was more like a parent, it worked out for you really quickly. Yeah.
Okay. 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. And I do attribute the cultural bit a lot because she just, I just don't want to screw up in front of my endo. Like, she is the most cutthroat lady. Mm-hmm. She might not be where I go for warm and fuzzy feelings, but she cares about my health in a way that a parent would,
Yeah.
She tells me, absolutely, you cannot do these things, X, Y, and Z. And I think that's not for everyone, but that's for me. It worked out really well. I appreciate that she's honest and, just gives me the truth. And so anyway, she diagnosed me type 1. She gave me kind of a little plan, but she was like, you need to come back in 2 weeks for sure. We're going to get you set up with everything that you need. So I had a physical scheduled with my primary care physician. I go back to her between these 2 weeks. I told her, oh yeah, I was diagnosed with type 1. And she was like, oh, okay, great. She obviously didn't know anything about type 1. She was just like, oh, I'm so glad that you have answers. And in that appointment, I had asked so my husband and I are trying to have kids. We would like to start trying. I have all this medical stuff happening. Is it safe for us to start trying, or should I wait? And I remember she's just like, oh yeah, you're going to be fine. Now that you have an endo and everything, yeah, go ahead. Definitely try.
Jill, can I yell at
awesome.
you? Can I yell at you for a second?
Yes.
What? Also, your Omnipod's almost out of insulin.
Oh, yep. It sure is.
How in that situation where the doctor who couldn't help you figure out you had type 1 diabetes, did you consider to ask her another question and take her seriously?
Scott, I don't know. Okay. I have no idea. I thought she was in charge of my general body and the other lady was in charge of just my diabetes. So I was like, okay, she's going to know in my physical for sure if I can have children. I just wasn't equating all these things as together, I was just, diabetes was such a thing outside my body that I just wanted to get rid of. Does that make sense? I just was like, okay, someone's handling that over here. I want to continue with my life and keep doing my things and keep staying with my plans,
So you didn't think of, you kind of thought about diabetes like a bankruptcy. You're like, yes, I spent way too much money and can't pay it back, but let's compartmentalize that, put it over here. I'm going to send $700 a month to that bill, and I'm still going to pretend that I'm me and there's nothing going on. You were trying to split the two apart, you and the diabetes. You weren't letting it merge together. Okay. You're there now though, right?
I'm
you're a person living with diabetes and all that stuff, and you don't.
Oh yes.
Yeah. No, I don't want people to be geez, this poor girl's not learning anything. We're just telling a story. That's all.
Nope, that's right. It was just a long learning.
Okay. Wow. I'm stunned that you asked that doctor if it was okay to have a baby.
It just was all kind of happening so fast too. And like, I wasn't used to going to doctors, in general. So I was like, okay, every week I'm seeing a nutritionist, and then I'm seeing the regular doctor, and then I'm seeing this endo, and like somebody's got to have answers. I just wasn't, it's not that I wasn't skeptical of doctors, but I was just so desperate to trust somebody to give me good news. I was like, please, just somebody say what I want you to say.
I got to be honest with you. This is the second story in 2020 I've heard that makes me not want to go to the Seattle area. So.
Oh, no.
So, okay. All right. So now you have type 1 diabetes. You have this lovely Indian doctor who's yelling at you the way you need to be yelled at. And then there's the other doctor who I'm not sure what she does still. And are you at what part do you and I intersect?
When did I win that thing? Probably
September,
August? July?
Yeah, okay. But you and I spoke on the phone once.
Right. But it was for the prize. It was, so I think you did that. You had a contest in July or August or something like that. And then when I won, I called you, or you called me.
But why was that? Oh, part of it was part of the prize was talking to me, which I now hear when I say out loud sounds like I'm an asshole. But I get what you're but that was
own your expertise. That's all right. It's a great prize.
Honestly, when I just said it out loud, I was like, oh, that sounds douchey. So but okay. Wow. I'm flush now like you are.
It's hilarious.
All right. So all right, I got it. So we're on the phone, and at that point, did you get knocked up yet? When does that part come?
Oh, yeah. I got knocked up immediately, right away. When my doctor said, oh, yeah, go ahead and start trying, I was like, dope, we're doing this.
You ran out the door legs first.
Yep. And then knocked up the next day. I'm not kidding. Like right away. And by the time that I saw my endo for the second time, I was already like a teeny tiny bit late. And I was like, oh, might also be pregnant. And the way she looked at me, oh my gosh.
I thought you were going to say she punched you. Like I thought
she looked like she wanted to. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God. So
she was like, what? And I was like, well, like I was told that it was fine. And like, this was already in my plan. I'm a teacher, so I really like to stick to my plans. Like a disgusting amount. It just is one of my things. I have a strict itinerary, and this was part of my plans. I did not want to give it up. And so when she looked at me, I was like, oh crap. Maybe it wasn't a good idea. And she said, like, you better hope that you're not pregnant. Your diabetes is completely out of control. You were just diagnosed. Mm-hmm. Forget everything that you've gone through since January. You were just diagnosed 2 weeks ago, like with a brand new illness. Type 2 and type 1 are completely different. So you better hope that you're not. And I was like, okay, not great. I totally was, of course.
Yeah.
Right away. So by the time you and I talked, I think I was probably like 4 months pregnant.
Wow. And so my recollection of talking with you back then, excuse me, was, hold on a second. Hello. That'll get cut out. Hold on a second. Or I'll just get lazy and leave it in. It's hard to know. Is that I remember going downstairs after we spoke, and I said to my wife, I just talked to the person who won the giveaway. And apparently she like was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and got pregnant like in the same like couple of weeks or something. Like I said, she basically found out she really had type 1 diabetes and she was already pregnant. And I don't think things are going great. And I remember my wife and I were like, oh, I hope that goes okay. And then I kind of started keeping after you on Instagram a little bit and like following along. And you're just, you're adorable. Like you're just like little and like you have a bright smile and a pretty face. Like you're adorable. And so
Thanks.
like you always look okay is what I'm saying. Like I'm assuming in some of those pictures you've just thrown up from wine and you still look adorable. So I can't tell how you're doing. I can't tell how you're doing from your Instagram. Actually, I guess nobody can tell how anybody's doing from social media, but that's not
right.
But so
just the good stuff.
Yeah, right. But then the baby came out. I was like, yay, right on. Because I assume you understand now that like there's a high likelihood that you would have ended up having a miscarriage if your blood sugars stayed the way they were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
if I hadn't found that endo, I mean, that really was the game changer. Of course, like I had no idea how serious it was. I knew it was serious to have diabetes, of course, but like not having any real context or having anybody at all in my life who has had any serious disease, for a long period of time. I just didn't really get it like internally, right? So once I got this endo and I got the correct diagnosis, and she just kept hammering into me like how serious it was that my blood sugar stay in control, it really all fell into place. I mean, I met her in April, end of March, beginning of April-ish. And honestly, by June, I was like 100%, I don't want to say in control all the time, but I had a really good handle on like how to manage the diabetes because she and her team were phenomenal. I mean, I went to see them every week for probably like 4 or 5 weeks and worked with these diabetes educators who are like Omnipod reps. And I got the Dexcom and the Omnipod immediately because I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Like immediately. I mean, I think I waited for like 3 weeks maybe where I still was finger sticking. And after that, I had everything, bells and whistles, ready to go. So I really have never experienced a life of diabetes difficult, if that makes sense, right? Like the beginning part obviously was difficult, but I didn't know what I was experiencing. So I don't count that. And when I hear all these other stories on the podcasts of people who like just maybe don't have all the technology or choose not to have the technology or, just there's all these things that we get to make diabetes management easier. I didn't really have to deal with that because my endo was just like, you're having this, put this on your body. I don't care how you feel about it. You need all these things. I've never had to really struggle in that same way, to figure things out. She made it really, really easy to kind of manage my diabetes. And she was checking on me constantly. So the entire pregnancy, I mean, I probably went there every 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It was really tight control. And I really think that made all the difference.
It sounds like she decided to take personal responsibility for your baby being okay. And
what a wonderful lady, right?
Yeah, no kidding. It occurred to me just now while you were talking, I've recorded, I might have recorded close to 500 of these at this point. And yours was the first 30-minute diagnosis story. But,
wow.
But when
Sorry.
No. But when you really think about it, it really was like all of that happened for those months and months and months. That's all part of you figuring out you have type 1 diabetes. And how many doctors did you have to run into? Like that doesn't warm my heart. How many doctors you had to run into before one of them was like, you have type 1. Like what's going on here?
The biggest thing was just that I was older, like that's the only thing people were looking at. Like, oh, she's 30. So
don't
she
forget,
can't possibly have type 1,
Yeah, and don't forget also that your people eat beans. So, like whatever
right,
that is.
Yeah.
Like seriously, I hear, Black patient advocates talk all the time about, people look at my skin and make assumptions about how I take care of myself immediately.
Yeah.
And so, that this is another example of that really. Like they see you, as your background and your heritage and your race. And then they're just like, oh, well, obviously she doesn't eat well. And this is why she has type 2 diabetes.
Yep.
That's
it.
horrible.
I mean, even though like I said, I wasn't overweight at the time, I told my doctors, like, I run every day and like I work out, I'm not super like slender all the time. A girl likes to eat, right? But I mean, I take care of myself. So it was, it's just, I hope that other people don't continue to have this problem where they're told like, oh, it's something that you did to cause this,
Listen, I would have no ability to look at you and think that you're an unhealthy person. So, it's just, until we talk to you and find out about the wine and everything else, and then we can start figuring
That's
it out.
my one serious vice.
Hey, listen, can you tell people right now, how do you hold a bottle and a baby at the same time? What's the balancing act?
Bottle and a baby. Oh, no problem. Just got to work out a little bit before. And
that way you can just keep the balance. We should probably tell Dyfus now that you don't drink wine while you're caring for your baby at the same time, right?
I mean... if it's nap time.
So how long have you had type 1 diabetes?
So now it's been since April of 2019. So a little over a year.
Can you tell me what your current A1C is? Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, it's I think it was 6.1.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was, in the fives. And then, of course, my endo was like, that's too low. You need to have a little bit more.
Did you think it was too low? Were you having lows when it was in the fives?
Yeah, because I'm still trying to manage like being active. So like I do work out, I run, I walk. Now I walk a lot more with the baby. And I hike. And so I do tend to get a lot of lows during any of those activities, no matter what I do to prepare. I'm still trying to get, figure that out. So I think that definitely like increases my chances of having a lower A1C, but I guess I just got to eat more.
Well, I like talking to you because you're not the person I imagine in my mind listening to the podcast, because you listen to it more for like the community stuff and hearing people's stories and not for the management stuff. And, in my default, in my head, that the podcast is about using insulin. And so, but I know there are people like you who don't listen to the management stuff as much. I tell people all the time in the private Facebook group who are very focused on management usually, that I was like, you guys are you're just one like subset of listeners. I was like, there are plenty of listeners who don't care about the stuff you care about. It's really interesting how it gets split like that. But you should try the pro tip episodes. They might help you not get low when you're active.
Yeah, I have listened to a lot of them. It's just I was listening to the podcast, I think, more frequently, like when I was pregnant and I had time. And I was really still like trying to manage a lot of things. I need to get back into it, but I did take a kind of a break from anything joyful and listening to my own things for a little while here, because anytime the baby's asleep, I'm like, okay, what can I get done?
I understand that. Well, what kind of a baby did you end up having? Did you end up having a boy type or a girl type?
I had a boy. He is the cutest child in the world.
I'm sure.
He's a little chunk. Yeah, everything turned out wonderfully. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better pregnant experience. And even being diabetic, like that was my one like difficulty, but I never got sick. I was able to eat pretty much what I wanted to eat. There was really nothing difficult. So I feel like that was in my mind, that was like the universe's trade-off. Here you have diabetes, but you're going to have a really easy pregnancy and delivery.
Glad, especially at 5'2", because you're a smaller person. So how big was the baby when it was born?
He was like 8.5 pounds.
Wow, that's a big baby.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, listen, as long as it makes it out, it's
little
fine.
to me.
I know, right? It's crazy how small they are. I don't know. I saw a baby picture of my son the other day. You know how like I have a widget on my computer and it pops like a picture up. Like right now, I just clicked on it. It's a picture of Arden when she's like a year old. And so they kind of pop up on my desktop once in a while. And then I get all like sappy and I sit here for a couple of minutes and I'm like, oh, look at how small he was. And now Arden's like in this photo just staring at me in this picture, which I can't share with anybody because Arden does not want to be portrayed as a baby on the internet. So, but she's adorable in this photo. So I know how you feel. But the busy, so how are you managing taking care of yourself with the busy? Have you found the split? Like you turned into like a real adult out of nowhere. Like you're managing diabetes and a baby and you still work, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like with my health, I totally was a 15-year-old. Still am a little bit. Like I have to, that's something that you take for granted if you've always been healthy. So I definitely in that aspect had to, grow up very quickly in that area. But I think everything else, I'm a pretty organized person.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a teacher. So like I'm all about checklists and
Lesson plans,
itineraries and getting things done. So I think that kind of helped also with like diabetes and balancing everything. And luckily I only had issues with diabetes when he was really, really little. Like when I was still trying to breastfeed, that was a challenge with blood sugar. I hemorrhaged when I was giving birth. And so that was a problem because it impacted like the iron in my blood or whatever. So that impacted my blood sugar. And Then I had some insulin resistance that I had never dealt with that before, really. At month 3 and month 6 postpartum, that was annoying. But they really are like little things. It's not really even mentionable. It's like little things. They all went away. And now it's just fine. I mean, luckily, knock on wood, right?
You have a terrific attitude. Like, you really do. You have a really kind of joyous personality and, a great attitude. So I'm sure that goes a long way to helping you.
I hope.
You'll find out. Give it away for a week and see if everything doesn't seem all doom and gloomy.
Yeah, right.
But that really is, I've just been waiting for so long to talk to you. Like, I remember when I said, like, come on the podcast, but let's push it way out into the future because I want you to have some distance from the story so you can tell it. That made me anxious. I was like, oh, I would like to record this one now, but I thought it'll go so much better if I push it off a little bit. And I made you push it off like a year, basically. I was like, pick something way out in the future and we'll do it. Cause it's December now in 2020. So it's been,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's been over a year since we talked on the phone even. And
yeah.
How old is your son now?
He just turned 1 like a couple days ago.
Congratulations. That's
excellent. Thanks. It was exciting.
Did you have a big Zoom party for him?
We did some drop-bys. So I still did like a little brunch thing with all these like treats to go that people could come take. And then people came, with their masks and just dropped off their gifts. I wanted my gifts, Scott. So they came and dropped off their gifts and then had some treats to go.
I didn't make this baby not to get free stuff.
Well, hello. It's his first birthday.
No, that's very cool. That's excellent. Good for you. I'm excited for you. And are you teaching virtually or how do you do that?
I am.
So do you like just put the kid right on your lap and teach, or how do you handle
I have my mom downstairs who just watches him for, a couple hours while I teach. Gotcha. I mean, that's another thing I think that helps the diabetes go smoothly is that I'm home and I have a lot of control over what I can eat, and I'm sitting in front of the computer. I've been a kindergarten teacher for 9 years, and then this year I switched to first grade so that I could only work in the morning.
Okay.
And so I have a partner that teaches in the afternoon, and when I was teaching like live in person with kindergartners, I mean, I was always low. Like my blood sugar was so annoying to handle because there's 25 people that need you. They need you to tie their shoes and they need you to help them use the bathroom. And, they can't do this. And this person hit me and this person, all these things. And my blood sugar would be, beeping. And I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to get it. 1 second. I'm going to eat something. Hold on. But I'm like running around, and it was so much harder to manage while I was working. You rarely sit as a kindergarten teacher, really any teacher, right? You just are not sitting. You're walking around helping the kids and talking and making copies, and the list is endless. And so I think being home really has helped it be manageable because I'm just sitting in front of the computer interacting with my kids. And if I need to grab something to eat to correct a blood sugar, low, I'll just go get it. It's not a big deal versus being at school. I can't always do that. I have to sometimes wait until lunch, or I have to grab a juice really quick. And it's not the best management.
So this setup has eliminated a major variability in your blood sugar, which is activity and not having time to look at yourself. So when you go back eventually, you're going to have to find basal rates that are different. I would imagine going back to work live will make your basal needs go down.
Yeah. Probably.
Arden's went way down leaving school. So
oh, really?
Yeah. So because like, I don't know why exactly, but I've been thinking about it more and more. And I think part of it was you get up in the morning and it's right away. It's that race in the clock. You're like, I got to get up and get a shower and do this and get out the door on time or I'll be late. And that whole thing. So you get feet on the floor, huge, where, life is just coming at you. And then you're at school and, you're interacting with people and all that stuff's going on. I don't know if there's any anxiety or stress being in high school for her, but her basal went down from like 1.2 to 0.9 an hour, like just coming home from and not being at high school. So she's going to have like an opposite of you. But you're going to go back and be in a track meet with little kids again. Although you're first grade now, it might be a little better. Maybe they won't hit each other quite as much.
This whole pandemic thing, it's just going to be kindergarten minds in bigger bodies, I think.
You don't think the kids learned anything in kindergarten this year?
I mean, I'm sure they have learned stuff, but the stuff that I think is like why you go to kindergarten is
the social,
how to learn how to line up and how to, you know what I mean? Like all those social skills, how to sit at the carpet for a long time and all the stuff that you physically have to herd cats for basically as a teacher. They might all be like at grade level, let's hope, but I think it's going to be just as much being on my feet.
It's so funny you say that. I recall the first couple of seasons of Cole playing baseball back when he was like Cole started when he was 4, but when he really started being on like teams when he was 6, I remember thinking back then, so much of this is just getting them to stand in a line.
Yep.
And then I remember as that kind of like youth baseball time ended when he was 12, I remember thinking, wow, look, now they say something and they go run over and get in that line. It took like 5 years to teach them how to do that. It's fascinating. And it really was
so much of teaching.
really was what was going on. Is like there's this whole just like, where do you go? Where do you stand? It's funny. You said something earlier too that made me think about something I just said on the podcast recently, which is when Cole was that age, he was he always has been and is today a really great outfielder, but he was when he was younger too. And he described it to me as that he didn't want to let his coach down. And I feel like that's how you feel with your doctors a little bit too. Like you're kind of like in a teacher student or a coach player situation with her. Mm-hmm. Does that ring true for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like this is kind of how my mom raised me, but like if people are spending their time on you, you show them respect by like caring about what they're talking about or trying to do what they're obviously teaching you, even if you don't like it. And that's kind of how I feel. I'm like, well, if she's trying so hard to teach me things that are useful, then the least I could do is actually try it and listen to her. And there have been some times where I'm like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I get irritated with like little things. And then I try what she says and I'm like, oh, look at that. It worked. So it just, yeah, it is kind of like coaching.
You found a good one, it sounds like. Should she be on my list, on the Juicebox Docs list? Is she a real good endo, you think?
I mean, I think she's amazing, personally.
Cool. That's excellent. She saved you, it sounds like, honestly.
Yep, yeah. She's amazing. And I even had, 2 years ago, I had a student in my class. He, came in for open house and his parents were popping in and his dad stopped me and was like, hey, you're diabetic. And I was like, yeah, like not, I was like, well, how do you even know that? And he's like, oh yeah, I see your Dexcom. And I was like, oh, are you diabetic? And he's like, yeah. And he like shows me his Dexcom, and come to find out he goes to the same endo. And it was just kind of a funny thing. Every time we would see each other, he'd be like, oh, I have to go see Dr. Q today. I'm going to be in trouble because, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh no, I totally feel your pain, and it's just even just those little interactions, knowing that like you have the same endocrinologist. She's like one of the best in our area. Mm-hmm. That is just like such a big community piece, too. So the fact that she has that presence to tie people together because of how she is.
Wow, that's excellent. That's really terrific. I actually go to that link and send me the information when you get a chance. It's juiceboxdocs.com. And
definitely. And they're the ones that told me about the podcast, actually.
Really? Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Q. Excellent. Yes. Well, now I like Seattle a little better. Look at that.
That's good.
I'm such a cheap whore. You could just easily sway me in 2 seconds.
It's not all terrible. I live outside of Seattle, so it's like, all the...
Well, I'm just saying, didn't those crazy people take a few blocks of Seattle this year and deem it
but I mean...
Just some hippie stuff?
That's just the good old crew, just keeping things interesting.
I'll tell you from a distance, it seemed pretty crazy, just so you know.
They're gone now.
They're gone. They've dispersed back to their lives.
That's right.
Oh my God. This episode is terrific. First of all, you're great. You I don't even think you needed me. I think I could have gotten on and been like, hey, Jill, tell people what happened to you. And then I could have pushed the mic away and gone and had a sandwich and come back and you would be talking still. So appreciate that very much. I'm glad the baby's healthy. Your husband's okay? Everybody's good with everything? Excellent. So I want to say that you are a great example of a quick transition. And that people who have been struggling for a long time, I think they should see you as a real, like, a story of like hopefulness, because all you really did was bump into the right doctor, find a little bit of information, listen to a podcast, get a YouTube video, and then here you are. You have a 6.1 A1C and you're living your life again. I think that everyone sometimes can believe that it's just such a long process, but the long part of the process is what you described in the beginning. It's the part where so my point is, the process doesn't have to be long. It has to be focused on the right things. And that becomes difficult when you don't know what the right things are.
Right.
Right. Because had you met Dr. Q on day one at that urgent care, you wouldn't have this long story, and your process to type 1 diabetes would have felt very quick and easy. So it's not about diabetes takes a long time to figure out. I think it's more about sometimes it takes a long time to find people that can help you with it.
Yeah, I agree. And like all of those little things that you mentioned, and like having Instagram and having the Facebook community and all of those things, like they just add so much to the experience to make it easier, because I can't imagine being a type 1 diabetic even 10 years ago, right? Where social media was like a thing, but not
Really
how it is now. I mean, there is so much information on how to manage your diabetes and how to live your life and how to eat normally, just at the tip of your fingers. If I ever have something that pops up, I just get on my Instagram and I'm like, okay, who has this? Let me make a post about it. Let me see if I can tag some people, right? It's just, you have so much more control. And I think finding those little things just to make your life a little bit easier, even though it might feel frustrating at first, it just makes all the difference, taking more control of your own health rather than waiting for doctors to figure stuff out.
Yeah. Well, because as you proved today, you could wait forever if you don't meet the right person.
Yep, that's right.
No, seriously, you could be dead now if you didn't meet that woman. Seriously.
I think that all the time, Scott. I think that all the time. I had so many from January to April. I had a lot of really scary incidents happen. And every time I took back the incident to a person in charge in my mind, I was just sent home. They're just like, yeah, that happens when you're diabetic.
And now
it just was so ridiculous.
And now no, it doesn't. Like, that stuff doesn't actually have to happen.
Yeah.
At some point, you mixed air travel, wine, and DKA together, basically.
Oh yeah, I went snowshoeing all by myself, Scott.
Wait a minute.
Which is intense. I had no control over my diabetes. I was like super shaky. I had a very intense low. Had no idea like that was a thing. Like, I was just like, oh, my blood sugar's low.
I'm holding
what now? Like, I had no idea what to do. I had nothing.
I'm holding in a laugh and wanting to say, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, I just had no information. I didn't know like how to connect the dots. I just was not getting anything. All I knew was being high was scary.
Yeah.
And that's it. Because for a type 2, that's the big.
Yeah, you're scared of
the
a
big
big
thing
number.
was being high, not being low. And so it was just a shit show, pretty much.
It really is fascinating, because aside of that time when you didn't understand about diabetes, aside of that time, you're a reasonably together person. You sound like you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing about you that says snowshoeing with undiagnosed type 1 diabetes. Like, you don't seem like that person now. And I assume you weren't that person outside of this bubble that existed, which was a bubble of having diabetes and not knowing and not
right. If I had known,
you would not have done.
If I had truly understood all of the dangers, I would have never done all the things that I was doing, but I just didn't have the information. That's it.
Wow.
It's just
wow.
ridiculous.
So you would tell people, keep moving till you find a good doctor, first of all. Mm-hmm. Right. And what other things have you learned that are valuable?
Oh, just get a community. That was a game changer, right? Like, again, in April, when I met Dr. Q's team, one of the girls, Monica, who is a diabetes educator and also an Omnipod rep, She is so kind and compassionate. I was like bawling. They were trying to get a Dexcom on me and I like didn't provide consent. They were just like, we need to put this on you. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't know what that is. And they're like, you need to have this on your body, right? So they put this Dexcom on me. I feel like I'm a horse being branded. Like I did not want anything on my body. I didn't know what it was. And she's so sweet. She takes her hands in mine and she's like, everything's going to be fine. You're going to go home. You're going to download the Juicebox Podcast. Okay. What is that called? Like, repeat after me. Really? You're also going to get yourself an Instagram and you're going to get yourself people that also have diabetes. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, that was the best advice that she could have given me because I was so emotional and it had been 4 months of nonsense. Right. Mm. And I did exactly what she told me. And those were two really simple things that I could control. You know, everything that the doctors were doing, I couldn't control. I just had to trust that they were giving me good advice. But you got to get yourself a community. That Instagram thing, you have to watch other people struggle and fail and get back up again so that you can learn how to manage your failures, because that's diabetes. You know, you're going to screw it up sometimes and you have to get to know your body. And there's no way to do it without watching other people do it.
I had a guy reach out to me, an adult male, a week ago or so through Instagram. And it just seemed like he had been watching my account for so long. And he just finally had the nerve to say like, hello. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I need help. And I looked at his graph and I was like, hey man, if I was you, I'd look at this and this and this. And he's starting to like get control of it. And you should see how happy he is. But it was his, he got over the hump of like, not saying anything to anybody, just imagining that his blood sugar had to stay in the 200s all the time. Mm-hmm. And, I've never been happier for a person who I've never seen before. Like he doesn't put his face in his account anywhere. I don't know him. But I've never been happier for a person that I don't know because he made this big, he made a big grand gesture for himself. And for him, it was just reaching out to somebody and saying, I don't know what to do.
That's it. And I have found that so many people in this community, of course, yourself included, are just so willing to help, like it's your health. If you're not willing to ask and say, hey, I need help with this, I don't know, man, it's going to be a lot harder, and there's so many people out there with the knowledge who are happy to at least point you in the right direction, Yeah,
no, I've found that for sure. Well, I think we've learned that in this hour, you've talked about a lot of pricks, but you only didn't avoid one of them. So the rest of them you were pretty good at running from. That's all I heard. Also, I have a image of you in a doctor's office, like in a horse bridle, having a Dexcom put on you for the first time.
That was traumatic.
I like that you were around people now that are just like, yeah, we'll worry about what you'll want in a minute. They really, well, because here's why, and I'll let you go in a minute. I know we're up on time, but it illustrates for me, like when people say about their kids, like, oh, he doesn't really want that. Or I don't think she would like that. She said she doesn't want that. I'm like, yeah, no one wants that. No one says to themselves, it'd be cool. I'd like to wear an insulin pump. But then you get type 1 diabetes. You know what I mean? And you go, okay. And then my thing to people has always been, what other life and death decisions do you let your 8-year-old make? Mm-hmm. Like they're always like, well, it's their body. And I'm like, I get that. I was like, but try it anyway, because, in a week, they're not going to notice it. I wore a G6 last week, and the only problems I had with my G6 was forgetting that I had it on when I was showering. Like, that's it. Because I kept banging into it with my hand and going, oh, I'm wearing that. I forgot. And I've worn an Omnipod Demo, and the same thing happens. A couple days later, you don't know it's there anymore.
Right. You just get used to it.
Yeah. And and listen, people don't have to pump. They don't have to use a CGM. I'm not saying that. But if you're a parent sitting around thinking, well, I do think this would be really beneficial, but, Billy doesn't want it, and Billy's 6 years old, maybe, channel your inner Dr. Q and just be like, shut up, Billy.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes we have to do things that are hard. I mean, that's just how it is. Diabetes is not something to mess around with, and if you have something that's going to make it that much easier that you are going to kind of forget about. I mean, you don't remember that you're wearing it unless you knock it on something and it comes off.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't see what the weight is for. Those things are game changers.
Because am I right, Jill? In fairness, if we left this up to you, you wouldn't be wearing those things.
No, and I think I don't think I'm alone in that. If you're an adult who has lived your whole life without a device on your body,
not looking for it.
You're not going to want to wear a device. I mean, shocker, it's not comfortable to have something stuck on you at the beginning. People don't always like change, right? That's a big life thing that you have to get used to. And especially as a woman, I think if, society pressures us so much to think about what we look like, it is a big mental step to think, okay, I have to put this on my arm, or I have to put this on my leg, or in a place where people could possibly see and ask questions. If you're not at that mental place to want to answer questions of people like, what is that? It's a big thing to put on. I think if someone had just handed me the Dexcom and said, here you go, wear it when you are, ready to wear it, I probably would have continued finger sticking for a while because it's just a big step. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that I'm not still doing that. There's sometimes that I run out of Dexcom supplies and I'm like, man, I have to go back to the old way. Like, this sucks.
I remember interviewing Victor Garber, and he said, I have I think it was a Dexcom or an Omnipod. It might have been an Omnipod. He's like, oh, I have that. It's in a drawer. He can't bring himself to do it. Now he wears it. Whichever one it was. I forget which one it was. Now he wears it. Mm-hmm. And so, he's not the first person who's told me I have the device. I put it in a drawer. And so I get it. Like, I remember taking Arden to the Children's Hospital for her first Dexcom insertion. And she said, going in there, I don't want this. And I was I was like, I know you don't. I said, but I think it's going to help you. So let's try it. And, and it's probably been the best decision we've ever made.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying force, by the way, I'm not saying force your kids to do something kicking and screaming, but I'm saying there's a way to continue to the conversation and, you talk them into doing it at some point, just, they're trying it at the very least.
Yep.
Yeah. Jill, thank you for this. Thank you for basically creating like a 2-year relationship with me so I could get a cool podcast episode out of you, because I just knew if we talked last year, this wouldn't have been this couldn't have gone better, in my opinion, is what I'm saying.
Great.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy. What did we name the baby?
Zavi. His name's Xavier, but we call him Zavi.
Not Scott, you're saying. Okay, I got it. That's all. You could have just said not Scott. I don't really care what your baby's name is. Do you understand?
My baby is adorable, and any kind of attention he gets, he's getting. I'm still a new mom, okay?
Oh, no. It's got to be the most exciting time. It doesn't end, by the way. If you're using my wife as an example, I still think my wife's ovaries twitch when my son or daughter are like in trouble or sad or upset or anything. I don't think it goes away, just so you know. You're going to be tormented by that kid forever. Your mom is somewhere right now tormented by the things that bother you. Just like,
she's downstairs, yes.
Poor Jill.
Very tormented watching Zavi.
Well, yeah. Is he a handful?
He's becoming a handful right now because he just took his first couple steps. So yeah, he is becoming a little nugget, that's for sure, but nothing I can't handle.
See, now you just made me think of the first time Arden ran across the room and it almost made me cry. Isn't that something? And she's 16, gosh. So just, it's not going to stop, just so you know.
I believe it.
Thank you so much for doing this. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. I got to tell you, I really like this one. It's probably going to go up pretty soon. A huge thanks to Jill for coming on the show and telling what I thought was an incredible story. Thanks also to Omnipod, makers of the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump, for being longtime sponsors. And another longtime sponsor, Dexcom, makers of the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And never forget about touchedbytype1.org. Learn more about the sponsors and give them a look. myomnipod.com/juicebox, dexcom.com/juicebox, touchedbytype1.org. This was a good first show, wasn't it? right? We're starting off 2021 with a vibe that I liked. Let's keep it going. Okay, so pretty soon, first couple weeks of January, on my Instagram and Facebook pages, I'll be putting up information, and it'll basically say this. Basically, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to figure it out. Probably 1 or 2 episodes of the Pro Tip series at a time. You'll listen to it in your own time, and then there'll be a scheduled time with a Zoom link that you can come and talk about it with a bunch of people. So, like a book club. We're going to listen to something, then come together and talk about it. I thought that was a nice idea. I ran it past some people. They seem to like it too. So we're going to give it a shot. And if it works, we're going to go through the entire Pro Tip series. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Pro Tip series, there are episodes within the podcast called Diabetes Pro Tip, and then an extension of what that episode is about. It begins at episode 210 with Diabetes Pro Tip, newly diagnosed or starting over. And you can see all of those in one place at diabetesprotip.com, where you can just scroll back in your podcast player and listen to them there. So if that sounds good to you, keep an eye out for the social media. I'm on the Instagram and Facebook. Let's see, on Instagram at Juicebox Podcast. On Facebook, the public group is at Bold with Insulin. The private group is Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes. The information will be there very soon. I hope you're having a great start to your new year. I am genuinely jacked up about this next season. I can't wait to bring you all the things I have planned out. Oh, and I probably should say, because so many people right now are trying to take advantage of others with their Instagram, what was the one thing I saw that cracked me up? I can't say, or the person will know who I am. Anyway, there's a lot of people charging money to get together in private Facebook groups and talk about things or have access to certain content. I do not do that. This book club thing is completely free. So you'll never be asked to spend money to listen to this podcast. Keep that in mind. Anyway, I'll get you more details as soon as I have them. I'm looking forward to doing it. I think the first meeting should definitely be in January. And I can't wait for this next season of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for leaving amazing reviews wherever you listen. Subscribe in a podcast app and support the advertisers. If you do those things, you make the inside of my heart happy. I'll talk to you soon.